Hello, this is Marianne, and for the next half hour, I will be reading from the June 2026 issue of the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. For the Love of Buffalo by Eri Alvarado. I did not arrive in Buffalo during its gentleness. I arrived when Buffalo was all edges and endurance, not a city that greets gently but demands you prove you can stay. The type of city that forces one to bleed before being able to appreciate it for all its beauty. Buffalo is where the wind knows your name and howls it. The snow gathers in the spirit as much as on the streets, quiet and heavy, like an unspoken oath no one can name. Winter here is not a season, but a test of survival. The long, cold, bitter months give way to sunnier days, spring arriving slowly, soft and unsure, the green breaking through the gray. It comes without promises, simply breathing into the summer heat that bursts in. The promise of joy, laughter, music on the lake, fire pits, and crowded nights, awakening the city into sunshine. People spill into the streets, fire escapes become front porches, the city, once clenched tight, opens its heart, and for a moment, Buffalo forgets its own weight. For a moment, it feels like everything it could have been without the years of strain pressing down on it, and music spills into commerce that felt forgotten. The lake carries the voices of its history. Buffalo opens itself in a way that feels almost unbelievable after everything it endures each year. Autumn arrives, and we fall in love over again with golden leaves falling like quiet goodbyes. Beauty sharpens before it disappears, and the air shifts, feeling the familiar return of something colder. Buffalo does not let you forget. It reminds you that everything here comes with a cost, even its beauty. Buffalo, in all its harshness, teaches a kind of loyalty that cannot be faked, the kind that grows in silence and builds neighbors into lifelineness, the kind that turns struggle into identity, the kind that has become the very rhythm of the city. Buffalo is a city of choices you can feel if you walk long enough. Investment appears like sunlight through clouds, but only in certain places. Costs rise like winter winds, predictable, bitter, unforgiving. Ownership changes hands quietly, long before the people who built the value ever get to touch it. For years, the city has spoken in the language of rebirth, growth, revitalization, opportunity. Words that sound like spring, yet move like winter. When you stop listening to what is said and start watching what is done. Buffalo is not just growing, Buffalo is being repositioned. In the past 2 months, the city has been speaking in contradictions, a skyline inching forward while the books fall behind, a projected deficit stretching past 100 million, numbers piling like snowdrift no one wants to claim. Growth is promised in the language of stability, but the ground beneath it feels less certain with every passing day. Along the waterfront, cranes rise like declarations of brighter tomorrows, glass, steel, and carefully worded visions of what Buffalo could be. The waterfront is telling capital, quietly and clearly, that this place is open, that is affordable, that it is ready to be reshaped. Public money moves, but it does not settle where it is most needed. It flows outward, toward projects that photograph well, toward incentives that protect investors, toward partnerships that reduce risk for everyone except the people already here. Wealth is redirected the way the seasons are, predictably, repeatedly, without apology. Buffalo remains divided not just by history, but by present reality, where opportunity arrives selectively. Buffalo is not collapsing, but for many families, stability is. Stand at the edge of the city and you feel something ancient, something untouchable, moving with a force that humbles everything around it. Buffalo reminds you that its power is relentless, unwavering, unapologetic, not the kind that comes from developers' renderings, but the kind that comes from people who keep rebuilding their lives inside a system that keeps trying to make them temporary. Over the next decade, there will be more projects, more press releases, more ribbon cuttings, more optics of investments, more language about progress. Murals will continue to bloom. Festivals still fill the calendar. Language will once again shift towards inclusion. The skyline will shift, and from the outside, the city will look like it is finally becoming what it was always meant to be. If the future is built the same way the past was, built through extraction dressed up as improvement, then the cycle will repeat. Generations will inherit stories of what was and yearn for what could have been. New revolutionaries will rise, new leaders will promise change, new communities will shape the fabric of the city. Through it all, Buffalo will slowly turn into a memory for the people who loved it first. One more place they survived, one more place they were told to leave, one more story of revitalization that did not include them. Let the people who kept the lights on own a piece of the future by expanding pathways to home ownership that are reachable, down payment assistance, low interest programs that don't drown people in paperwork. It means community land trusts, cooperative housing, and shared equity models so neighbors can stay neighbors, not become investment vehicles. It means community benefit agreements that are enforceable, local hiring that isn't symbolic, wages that meet the cost of living, and contracts that circulate money back into Black, Latino, immigrant, and working class communities. It means property tax relief for long-time residents, especially seniors, disabled, and the most vulnerable. This means public money must finally behave like public money and start flowing first to what residents need most, like schools, transit, safe streets, lead remediation, accessible health care, and mental health resources, youth programs, job training tied to real careers. A city can be beautiful and still be unjust. A city can be resilient and still be exploited. A city can throw festivals and still lose families quietly. If Buffalo is going to keep asking people to prove they can stay, then Buffalo must finally prove it is worthy of the ones who already did. Page 2, Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York announces 13th Annual Hispanic Heritage Community Breakfast. The Hispanic Heritage Council of Western New York, Inc. is proud to announce the 13th Annual Hispanic Heritage Community Breakfast to be held on Saturday, June 20th, 2026 at 9 a.m. at the Buffalo Niagara Convention Center, 153 Franklin Street, Buffalo, New York. This year's theme, celebrating the Trailblazers, HHC Board established 2010, pays tribute to the founding leaders whose vision and determination laid the groundwork for one of the region's most influential Latino cultural organizations. The Council will honor the individuals whose early commitment sparked a movement that has grown into a legacy of service, cultural preservation, and community pride. All proceeds from the breakfast will support the development of the Hispanic Heritage Cultural Institute, the first of its kind in Western New York. The institute will serve as a permanent home for the preservation of Hispanic history, a hub for cultural arts and education, and a space dedicated to community empowerment. For more information, you can send an email to info@hispanicheritageWNY.org. Page 3. Education Standards to Uphold by Angelica Aquino. The school year is wrapping or has wrapped in many school districts. Before summer closes, it would be great to review the educational achievement levels at public schools nationally. I recently received the great news of my teenage cousin, NJ, sitting for the NYS High School Algebra 1 and Global History. I am thrilled to hear it. I wish him and all the students in New York City sitting for both tests great prepping and the adequate amount of rest to ace it and show how amazingly talented they all are. The national standards for reading, math, and science have shifted in NYS. In New York City, math standards changed in 2024 for middle and high school students. There was a new curriculum adopted for junior high school and high schools with the intent to harmonize math instruction in New York City. My cousin, NJ, has benefited of such. I am happy to know that he is sitting for the Algebra 1 Regents, in which he would test on the following areas: number systems, algebraic expressions, equations and inequalities, functions, statistics and probability, and geometry. I hope that all students get the equal opportunity to prepare for the test in June and that their scores accurately reflect the realities of educational excellence, as well as the discrepancies students face not only based on race and ethnicity, but also on adequate educational resources and after-school programs in which their academic skills are enhanced. I hope that the Global History Regents is also an intellectually challenging testing experience for all candidates. The areas that would cover include antiquity and modern times. In a world so interconnected, I am eager to hear what modern global history questions will be tested and how proportional the questions are to the diverse population that makes New York City the capital of the world. I live with the math proficiency for 202 major cities in the USA, and I hope that the new curriculum adopted in 2024 will have the opportunity to flourish with all students in every district in our city and state. Page 4. Un momento justo por la paz by Victoria Ross. Bienvenidos to the new WNY Peace Center Executive Director, Stephanie Mejia. We are thrilled to announce that activist and organizer Stephanie Mejia is now the Executive Director of the WNY Peace Center. Bienvenidos a nuestra amiga y líder intrépida. Stephanie brings an extensive background in organizing, management, and community care. She has worked closely with unhoused individuals, ensuring that people's needs are met, support systems are strengthened, and communities of care are built for the good of all. Her professional experience includes serving as a senior grant project manager for NYS Homes and Community Renewal, Director of Medicaid Redesign Housing Services at Evergreen Health Systems, and key roles in housing services at Catholic Charities and the Lieutenant Colonel Matt Urban Human Services Center. As the daughter of immigrants from Honduras and El Salvador, Stephanie grew up in the struggle and learned from her mother how to get the job done while caring for others. Her life's work has centered on meeting the needs of the most marginalized and vulnerable. She has served with Code Blue during harsh winters and is a steadfast translator for Journey's End. Stephanie's compassion, connectivity, and deep sense of responsibility make her a true leader, one who earns trust, builds relationships, and strengthens movements. Her kindness is unmistakable, and her organizational skill is exceptional. With an executive master of public administration from Syracuse University and a career rooted in service, she brings the administrative mastery and strategic clarity that social justice work demands. Stephanie will help guide the WNY Peace Center into its next chapter. She is exactly the leader we need to advance our mission in these challenging times. What's happening at the WNY Peace Center? There is always much in motion at the WNYPC. Our beloved Camp Peace Sprints is being planned by youth, and this year's theme is democracy. Campers will explore the signs of a true democracy, possibly engage in a voter registration project, enjoy swimming at Canisius University, and at the beach, make art, build community, and practice being the change that we want to see in the world. Registration is open for youth ages 8 through 13th, Monday through Friday, July 20th to the 31st, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sliding scale and scholarships are available. Join us for our 19th Camp Peace Sprints. It promises to be our best yet. Meet Stephanie on Talking Peace. We will feature a special Talking Peace video audio interview with our new executive director, Stephanie Mejia. It will be live streamed on May the 27th, and it will be available on YouTube beginning May the 29th on the WNY Peace Center channel. Please visit wnypeace.org for more updates and to let us know what else you would like to see from the WNY Peace Center. Onward together, si se puede. Next article. Publisher warns of growing impact of ICE on Buffalo's Latino community, by Alberto O. Capas. Canisius College, New York. Alberto O. Capas, publisher of Buffalo Latino Village, delivered a forceful warning about the rising fear, disruption, and harm caused by ICE in Latino neighborhoods across Buffalo and Western New York. The presentation, Latinos in the Age of ICE, was hosted at Canisius College and sponsored by the Western New York Peace Center's Latin American Solidarity Committee. This past month, we convened community members, educators, and advocates for an urgent discussion on the impact of immigration enforcement in the region. This is not an imaginary issue, Capas said. This is happening in our neighborhoods, in our daily lives, and in our community. He pointed to the West Side, Lower West Side, Black Rock, Riverside, and other areas where Latino family lives, work, and raise children. Capas contrasted Buffalo's celebrated development boom with the daily reality faced by many Latino residents who live under the shadow of surveillance and enforcement. He described the ripple effects of fear, workers missing shifts, families avoiding public spaces, children anxious about their parents returning home, and small businesses losing customers as uncertainty spreads. He also raised concerns about reports of the Buffalo area hotel being used as a temporary ICE holding site calling the practice deeply troubling and urging greater transparency and accountability from local and federal authorities. A central theme of the presentation was the demographic reality of Buffalo and Erie County. Most Latinos in the region are Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans are American citizens. Capas said the citizenship carries a responsibility to stand with Latino neighbors who are not citizens and who face the most direct consequences of enforcement actions. Puerto Rican leaders, churches, organizations, and civic groups must not remain silent. This is our community. These are our neighbors. Solidarity is not optional, it is a responsibility, he said. Capas called on local organizations to host public forums, share legal information, support impacted families, and build communication networks capable of responding quickly when enforcement activities create fear or disruption. He urged the community to remain visible, informed, and united. Anyone who has concerns or information about ICE-related activities can email the Latino Village at latinovillage1@gmail.com or reach out to your local leaders and organizations. Next article, Organize Like Huerta by Virginia McIntyre. I like to end my series on empowering women in contemporary society and history with Dolores Huerta. Dolores was a pioneer for civil and human rights. She worked tirelessly for the farm workers and more. Dolores Huerta was born on April the 10th, 1930, and is a legendary American labor leader and civil rights activist. She co-founded the National Farm Workers Association, which became the United Farm Workers, or UFW, alongside Cesar Chavez in 1962, and coined the famous rallying cry, "Si se puede." Her life's work and legacy span several key areas such as labor and civil rights activism, grassroots organization, honors, and recognition. She helped organize the historic 5-year Delano grape strike from 1965 to 1970 and led national consumer boycotts that forced agricultural companies to improve wages and conditions. Huerta successfully lobbied for laws like the groundbreaking California Agricultural Labor Relations Act of 1975, which granted farm workers the right to organize and bargain collectively. She negotiated the first collective bargaining agreements with agricultural businesses, helping secure health care benefits, formal grievance processes, and restrictions on harmful pesticides. After decades with the UFW, Huerta founded the Dolores Huerta Foundation in 2003 to focus on grassroots community organizing, civic engagement, and leadership development. The foundation operates heavily in California, focusing on voter registration, healthcare access, women's rights, and education equity. Huerta received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, awarded by President Barack Obama in 2012, recognizing her lifelong dedication to civil and workers' rights. Numerous states and cities feature schools, parks, and housing projects named in her honor, particularly throughout California. In March 2026, following a New York Times investigation, Huerta broke a decades-long silence to detail her own experiences with sexual abuse and manipulation by Cesar Chavez in the 1960s. While publicly sharing this traumatic history, she actively emphasized that these actions do not define the collective victories of the farm worker movement. Page 5. My First Time in Honduras by Steve Peraza. My mother and grandmother are intrepid ladies. Throughout my life, they have traveled to Honduras regularly, first to visit family and stay connected, and later to manage properties that they purchased with US dollars. I still converse with my mother about the next house she plans to build on one of her properties. I too visited the homeland on several occasions. I was younger and had little experience with life's ups and downs, but I learned about poverty and joy the first time I visited Honduras. I was 8 years old and I fell in love with life amid struggles. As I recall, we stayed with family in a city called Puerto Cortes. The bigger city was San Pedro Sula, and my mom decided to rent a car and drive us there. On the way, we stopped to visit her uncle Avelino for the night in a village called Choloma. Avelino was an inspiring folk artist and he lived with his wife and baby girl. That excursion taught me what I needed to know. In the late 1980s, Honduras was what we used to call a developing country. I could tell by the road from Puerto Cortes to San Pedro Sula. The highway was under construction. Part of the way we drove on rocky soil, the remnants of an old world road where horses pulled carriages from city to city. Another part of the road, closer to San Pedro, was cemented. I knew we were getting close to the big city because our car hit the edge of the new road, which was 6 to 8 inches above the dirt road. Our bumpy ride had a big bang before it smoothed out. Soon after we hit the cement, I saw a long line of villagers walking along a dirt pathway parallel to the highway. The men and women were wearing outdated clothes that reminded me of school textbook pictures of people before the U.S. Civil War. I soon saw them walk into a large factory that had Gap written on a dome. I was wearing a Gap shirt that day. I felt ashamed. Why am I wearing modern clothes? I wondered, while my people look like that. It was decades before I wore another Gap item. Not long after, we stopped in Choloma for the night. First, we clunked off the highway, another big boom of the cement onto a dirt road. We pulled up to my mom's uncle's place, which was a humble abode, yet nicer than others. Most of the neighborhood had shacks with thatched roofs. My uncle's place had tin on the top, which plinked and plunked in the night rain. I loved the music of nature. We slept on thick sheets atop an earthy floor. The wood-paneled walls had narrow gaps, letting in mosquitoes at night and light after sunrise. I scratched myself to sleep, listening to the storm, then rose with the sun. There was no plumbing in the house, so we managed our water and waste respectively with a stone basin filled with fresh water from the well and with an outhouse a few yards from the structure where we relieved ourselves. I had a beautiful time. My uncle's daughter Carmencita was absolutely adorable. I wished I had a sister, and that wish would come true 12 years later. In the evening, too, Avelino played his guitar and sang for us. I remember feeling joy at home for the first time. Years later, I would learn that my mom's uncle died of AIDS, that his village, Choloma, was a slum controlled by drug lords, and that U.S. companies were exploiting Honduran workers with low pay at dangerous work sites. I admit to you, I knew all this from experience, but what I choose to remember is the joy of my first family visit to the homeland. I live and I learn. Next article, Latina Her Story by Talia Rodriguez. Meet the Baseball Mom, Madeline M. Taylor Rodriguez. The crack of the bat makes every step with the chairs worth it. As we settle along the field, we all wait for that moment. The ball soars and someone does their red, white, and blue job. The roar that follows is well deserved. I might be the loudest for my own boy, but this season I have been thinking about the people behind those moments, the ones who deserve applause too. This month's Latina Hair Story honoree, Madeline M. Taylor Rodriguez, is one of them. She heads the West Side Baseball, Softball, and T-Ball League. Mother and Titi extraordinary, proud Puerto Rican wife and community leader. Madeline grew up, like many of us, with baseball as a family tradition. Today, she works to sustain an environment of achievement, learning and growth for West Side youth each summer. Year round, she gathers supporters, lifts morale, and keeps alive a game deeply rooted in Buffalo's history. West Side baseball, softball, and t-ball is part of our community story, shared in living rooms, at graduations, during holidays, and across generations of cousins and relatives. Our story is being re-energized by Madeline and by the new and returning generations of Buffalo families. The league itself was founded more than 50 years ago by Toby Azores, a legendary West Sider and business leader. He formalized the athletic energy already bursting through decades of Buffalo's immigrant West Side before the pasta was ready. Buffalo loves sports, and so does the West Side. Madeline represents the best kind of baseball fan and a key target market. Alongside many Latinas who serve as coaches, organizers, volunteers, and administrators, she reflects the growing investment Latino families are making in youth sports. According to a report, Unlocking the Growing Power of Latino Fans, Building a Grower or Stronger Sports Economy, Latino youth sports participation grew 3.9% annually from 2019 until 2024, nearly double the rate of non-Latino youth. The report found that Latino youth who play competitive sports are 3 times more likely to become avid fans as adults. And as adults, Latino fans spend more on sports and are more likely to attend live events. In many ways, the Latino family is its own sports ecosystem. A tío offering a batting advice from the stands, a mom running the snack bar like clockwork, cousins shifting from teammates to referees, neighbors shouting tips from their driveway, and a shared love of the game. One that becomes lifelong and, at least indirectly, shapes future spending habits. Unless I am the only one who has owned more than my fair share of Buffalo Bison's hats. The West Side Baseball, Softball, and T-Ball League serves children ages 4 through 13, and registration is free. A real gift at a time when families are stretched at the gas pump and grocery store. That gift is powered by a mother who knows what it means to beat the odds and uses that strength to create joyful, safe summers for kids who deserve every chance to swing big and laugh hard. If you ever had a plate that felt like home, or stepped out with big dreams and a bigger glove, then you understand. People like Madeline keep those chances alive for the next generation by showing up, lending a hand, or simply remembering what the game once gave you. Follow West Side Baseball, Softball, and T-Ball League on Facebook, or email westsidebuffalobpl@gmail.com to stay connected and support the story as it grows. Maybe thank a coach somewhere, and hey, maybe look for your mitt. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Page 6, Artesanía Boricua Familiar, a New Space to Create, Teach, and Dream by Dianise Roman Rodriguez. El pasado 2 de mayo celebramos la inauguración de nuestro estudio y pequeña tienda de artesanía boricua familiar, un espacio nacido desde el amor por el arte, la cultura y la educación. Más que una apertura, fue un momento profundamente especial para nuestra familia y para todas las personas que han apoyado este camino desde el comienzo. Ver nuestra comunidad reunida, compartiendo, apoyando y creyendo en este sueño fue algo que llevaremos siempre en el corazón. Cada abrazo, cada palabra y cada persona que dijo presente hizo de este día uno inolvidable. Este nuevo espacio representa mucho más que arte. Representa perseverancia, identidad y la esperanza de continuar creando proyectos que eduquen e inspiren a nuestras futuras generaciones. Entre nuestras próximas metas se encuentra la producción de un libro educativo para colorear inspirado en la cultura taína, así como juegos y materiales educativos diseñados para conectar a los niños con nuestras raíces a través del arte y la creatividad. Creemos firmemente que el arte puede enseñar, unir y sembrar identidad desde la infancia, y ese continuará siendo el gran corazón de todo lo que hacemos. Gracias a todos los que fueron parte de esta hermosa apertura y a quienes continúan apoyando el crecimiento de artesanía boricua familiar, nuestros sueños y nuestra misión cultural. Esto apenas comienza. Próximo artículo: el arte como herencia familiar. Vivir lejos de Puerto Rico cambia muchas cosas, cambia el clima, las costumbres y hasta la forma en que criamos a nuestros hijos. Pero hay algo que muchas familias boricuas en la diáspora intentamos conservar con todas nuestras fuerzas: nuestra identidad cultural. Muchas veces pensamos que mantener viva nuestra cultura requiere grandes eventos o festivales. Sin embargo, la herencia cultural también vive en momentos simples, alrededor de una mesa con pinturas, pinceles, música, historias y manos creando juntas. En nuestro hogar, el arte se ha convertido en una forma de conexión familiar. Entre trabajos, responsabilidades y el ritmo acelerado de la vida, siempre buscamos pequeños momentos para crear juntos. A través de la artesanía y del arte, nuestras niñas aprenden sobre sus raíces puertorriqueñas de una manera natural y emocional. Mientras pintamos o trabajamos alguna pieza artesanal, también hablamos de Puerto Rico, de nuestras tradiciones, de nuestras fiestas y de los recuerdos que todavía viven en nuestro corazón. Como padres que llegamos adultos a Buffalo, cargamos experiencias muy distintas a las de nuestros hijos. Nosotros crecimos rodeados de plazas, festivales culturales, artesanos y actividades comunitarias donde el arte formaba parte de la vida cotidiana. Nuestros hijos, en cambio, crecen entre dos culturas. Por eso sentimos la responsabilidad de enseñarles quiénes son y de dónde vienen. El arte tiene algo poderoso. Une generaciones. Una niña puede aprender sobre su cultura mientras pinta una bandera, escucha plena en la sala o ayuda a decorar una pieza artesanal. En esos momentos también aprende orgullo, memoria y sentido de pertenencia. En tiempos donde todo parece rápido y digital, crear con las manos también se convierte en una forma de preservar nuestra esencia. La artesanía y el arte nos recuerdan el valor de la paciencia, de la creatividad y del tiempo compartido en familia. Como familia hemos aprendido que el arte no solo crea objetos, crea recuerdos, conversaciones y unión. Nos permite transmitir parte de nuestra esencia puertorriqueña a la próxima generación, aún viviendo lejos de la isla. Porque al final la cultura no sobrevive sola, sobrevive cuando decidimos vivirla, enseñarla y compartirla con amor dentro de nuestros hogares. Y muchas veces la herencia más valiosa que podemos dejarles a nuestros hijos no es algo material, sino el orgullo de saber quiénes son y las raíces culturales que viven dentro de ellos. There is an announcement on page 7. The 2026 Alicia Torres Award is seeking candidates for the 2026 Alicia Torres Award, which will be presented at the upcoming Ibero State of the Latino Community on October 15th, 2026. We invite you to nominate individuals who exemplify the qualities that defined Alicia Torres and who demonstrate the outstanding attributes that distinguished her life's work. The Alicia Torres Award honors a legacy of commitment, humility, and lifelong dedication to the development and well-being of Puerto Ricans and other Latinos in the city of Rochester. Alicia Torres was a quiet force, always behind the scenes, unselfishly giving her time to individuals, community activities, and the agency. She never sought recognition for her contributions. Through her efforts and through the inspiration she offered others, we can attribute much of the success of the Puerto Rican Festival and many other agency-sponsored events. This annual award is dedicated to her memory and to the many hours she devoted to uplifting both individuals and the broader community. We ask for your assistance in identifying individuals who you believe truly personify the spirit and example of Alicia Torres. Deadline July 31st, 2026. Submit by email iberoevents@iaal.org or by regular mail. Ibero American Action League, Alicia Torres Award, 124 Evergreen Street, Rochester, New York, 14605. Page 8. Ignorance Carries a Higher Cost by Eri Alvarado. Poor people often end up supporting everything and everyone except themselves, and that is part of the problem. The focus is constantly outward instead of inward. Responsibility is too often shifted to external systems, institutions, or circumstances, while personal and collective choices go unexamined. How is it that some people arrive in this country and build wealth, while others born here struggle to recognize or access the resources already available to them? Why is blame so frequently placed on outside forces instead of examining what is within our control? Planning, priorities, sacrifice, discipline, and knowledge. There is also a contradiction we rarely address. Many people present themselves as deeply altruistic, yet rely heavily on the same communities they claim to be serving. Support becomes a cycle of dependency rather than empowerment, driven by need instead of intentional growth. We constantly promote the idea of community in this country, but rarely define what responsibility within a community actually looks like. Community is not just support, it is accountability, education, and shared standards. And we must be honest about leadership. If those guiding others are truly effective, their work should produce stability and progress, not the same ongoing struggles they claim to be addressing. The truth is uncomfortable, but ignorance carries a higher cost. Next article, Sharing My Experience with Buffalo, The Power of Storytelling, From Page to Page, by Manuel Hernandez. In 2019, the power of storytelling catapulted our work beyond the classroom and into the national stage. That year, two of my former students, Brian Rivero and Jean Lara, traveled with me to Santa Fe, New Mexico as spotlight speakers at La Cosecha, a nationally recognized convention on bilingual education that took place in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Jean and Brian were beginning their college education and had graduated from high school a year earlier. What began as an after-school writing workshop had evolved into a model for how storytelling can transform students' academic and personal trajectories. From emerging bilingual students, as they were defined by entering the school system in the United States, just 2 to 3 years before, they had become national spotlight speakers. At La Cosecha, Brian and Jean shared their journeys as participants in a program designed to help Latino youth articulate their coming to America stories. The narrative explored identity, resilience, and belonging. Through the process of writing, they discovered their voices, developed critical communication and leadership skills, and learned to navigate the complexities of higher education with confidence and purpose. Their presentation was not just about essays and workshops, it was about how storytelling had the potential for college and career empowerment. Before an audience of educators and advocates from across the country, Brian spoke about how crafting his story helped him refine his public speaking and analytical thinking skills that later supported his transition to college life. Jean reflected on how the writing process deepened his appreciation for history, perspective, and culture, an insight that now guides his work as an educator. Their words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom expressed renewed inspiration to integrate personal narrative and cultural identity into their own classrooms. Today, the long-term impact of that moment continues to unfold. Brian Rivero is completing his bachelor's degree at the University of Central Florida, where he continues to apply the same communication and critical thinking skills he first developed through storytelling. Jean Lara, now a history teacher, helps his own students discover the power of connecting personal and collective narratives. Their paths reflect the lasting influence of a program rooted in culture, voice, and purpose. Looking back, the trip to La Cosecha marked more than an academic milestone. It represented a broader vision for education. It demonstrated how centering students' journeys in their learning fosters confidence, empathy, and leadership. It proved that storytelling is not merely about writing stories, it is about shaping futures. A story on a page has the power to transform one, a community, and a nation. Next article, A Trojan Horse at the Gates of the Latino Community by Alberto O. Capas. Across the country, urban neighborhoods are experiencing the accelerating impact of gentrification. Communities once ignored by policymakers and investors are suddenly attracting developers, new residents, and outside interests. While investment can bring improvements, it can also create fear among long-term residents who worry about rising rents, displacement, and the erasure of cultural identity. On Buffalo's Lower West Side, these concerns are not abstract. They are lived every day. Bodegas that once anchored corners begin to disappear overnight. The sound of salsa, merengue, and bachata that once filled Virginia Street and Busty Avenue fades away. What was once a proud Latino corridor is slowly being reshaped by forces outside the community. Gentrification occurs when wealthier development moves into historically working-class neighborhoods, driving up property values and housing costs. Over time, the very families who stayed and built the community, who kept it alive through decades of disinvestment, can no longer afford to remain. Local businesses close, cultural spaces vanish, and neighborhoods lose the traditions that once defined them. For more than half a century, the Lower West Side has been the heart of Buffalo's Latino community. Puerto Rican families, Dominican families, immigrants from across Latin America, and generations of working-class residents created a neighborhood rooted in culture, resilience, and mutual support. The restaurants, storefront, churches, La Botanica, murals, and small businesses are not just landmarks. They are expressions of identity, belonging, and survival. This community shaped the Lower West Side long before developers discovered it. Today, however, rising development and outside investment are raising serious questions about the future of that identity. The day may come when we are told that the Puerto Rican Hispanic Parade will no longer march down Niagara Street and the Three Kings will no longer visit local businesses. These traditions are not guaranteed. They survive only when the community that created them remains in place. Latino leadership is vital. Local politics play a decisive role in determining whether neighborhood growth benefits residents or pushes them aside. Zoning decisions, housing policy, tax incentives, and development approvals directly influence who can afford to remain in the Lower West Side. When these decisions are made without the voices of Latino residents, the results are predictable: displacement, cultural erasure, and a neighborhood that no longer reflects the people who built it. Development itself is not the enemy. Neighborhoods welcome safer streets, stronger businesses, and improved housing. The real issue is whether development includes and protects the people already living there, the families who endured decades of neglect, redlining, and political invisibility. Only real Latino leadership can guarantee that. This conversation also extends to projects like the Hispanic Heritage Cultural Institute. Leaders view the institute as an opportunity to celebrate Latino history and bring cultural education into the neighborhood. A strong cultural institution could preserve heritage and create economic opportunities for residents and businesses, but only if the vision, passion, and leadership come from within the community. Many residents worry that cultural projects, if not grounded in genuine community leadership, can unintentionally accelerate gentrification. A cultural institution must never become a symbol that honors Latino history, while the actual Latino families of the Lower West Side are priced out of their homes. A museum without a community is not preservation. It is a monument to what was lost. This is why authentic Latino leadership is essential. Latino leaders, elected officials, activists, clergy, educators, business owners, and longtime residents must advocate for policies that protect both the neighborhood and its people. That means fighting for affordable housing, supporting local entrepreneurs, strengthening tenant protections, and ensuring residents have a real voice in development decisions. It means demanding transparency, accountability, and community-driven planning, not decisions made behind closed doors. Protecting the Lower West Side is not about resisting progress. It is about ensuring that progress does not come at the expense of the very people who gave the neighborhood its soul. The future of this community will depend on whether development is shaped by the voices of Latino residents or by outside interests with little connection to the neighborhood's history. Gentrification is not only about buildings and economics. It is about identity, belonging, and who has the right to remain in the community they helped build. For Latino families on the Lower West Side, the question is urgent. Will they be part of the neighborhood's future or reduced to a chapter in its past? And as plans move forward for the Hispanic Heritage Cultural Institute, the community must ask whether it will truly serve Latino residents or whether it risks becoming another downtown institution that benefits outsiders more than the people whose culture it claims to honor. Only time will tell. There's an announcement on page 10. M&T Bank presents Downtown Country Market 2026 season now open weekly on Thursdays at the Fountain Plaza, downtown Buffalo, from June through October, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Thursdays. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 2026 issue of the Buffalo Latino Village. Your reader has been Marianne. Thank you for listening.